there are real scenarios where a candidate could both crawl its entire personal life, work history, mesh that to the job description, what the company does, and use AI to create the perfect resume tailored for each and every individual job that they apply for. If you've tried to hire AI talent in the last year, you already know the market is broken. Not because there's no talent out there, but because most hiring processes were built for traditional software roles, and AI is a different game.
Darius, what are the most common reasons AI hires fail?
I think the issue for most companies starts at the beginning of their process. So most companies tend to over-index on credentials. And the challenge in this market is that there are real scenarios where a candidate could both crawl its entire personal life, work history, mesh that to the job description, what the company does, and use AI to create the perfect resume tailored for each and every individual job that they apply for. And so companies that over index on credentials run into a scenario where if you're dealing with candidates without as much integrity, right, you deal with them adding fake credentials, which ultimately you might catch that. However, you have to catch that, and that's a waste of time. The other side of that is when the resume actually looks perfect, which again, you could use AI to do that. You're interviewing a candidate that hasn't gotten the repetitions required to actually do the job, though on the resume it looks very good. And so the challenge for recruiters is one, not to fill up a pipeline with candidates who, again, look great on paper, look like they fit the role, but ultimately you end up spending an hour for each candidate to interview to determine whether that candidate is actually a fit. And the pipeline gets really messy, which then creates a press for time on behalf of the recruiters, right? And the recruiter is not able to do a thorough enough vetting process in order to get the right candidate. And I mentioned recruiter, but it's actually the entire recruiting team. So for many startups, there's this timeline. There are these checkpoints that need to be hit that could be determined by client demand. It could also be determined by fundraising deadlines, right? And so what we want to make sure is that as we think about the recruiting process, that part is as efficient as possible. When you have a pipeline of talent, we should be confident that talent is credible, and we should be confident that talent also has the skills so that this is someone I should be talking to, versus determining in the conversation whether this is the first layer of vetting this person is going through in order to see if they should advance in the process.
Why do a strong AI pipelines still deliver weak hires?
The issue is this: what do we consider a strong pipeline? In sales, just because you have 1,000 leads does not mean that all of those leads are good. So what feels like a strong pipeline could simply mean quantity without quality. And the challenge for recruiting teams and AI teams is that the traditional process for hiring, which is posting a job and then receiving resumes, it's very easy to create a customized resume for that particular job, whether the candidate has experience or not, right? And so the pipeline can get a little fuzzy, right? The pipeline may initially indicate high signal candidates, but the reality, because no one's ever talked to these candidates to this point, is that pipeline could be filled with resumes that have been customized for AI by candidates that don't actually have the experience that's necessary. And so what we've seen is the critical thing that internal recruiting teams struggle with is time. Even if they have the expertise, it's still time that they struggle with, having to interview a swarm of candidates, but without the time to actually sit and vet each and every single one of them. And so it's really important pipeline hygiene. But in a lot of cases, given where we are with technology in this space, with firms who are helping customize resumes despite quality of talent, pipeline cleanliness is important, but it requires more conversation. It requires someone to have more time availability than most internal teams have.
What mistakes do companies make when they start hiring for AI?
So One of the major mistakes companies make when they're hiring for AI is to have a job description that's too general. The tendency is this: we don't want to miss a good candidate simply because they don't have one skill or another. And so there's a fear of niching down and trying to find the candidate that has all of the qualifications that would lead to success in that particular role. The reality is you should actually niche down. Niching down helps you to find that specific individual who has the qualities that would lead you to get excited, right? In the process of hiring someone, you should be hiring people that you genuinely feel impressed with. And that happens when they're speaking directly toward the technology that your company is building, the tech stack that your company has, whether we're talking about tools, whether we're talking about industry, seniority. It's important to niche down and figure out the folks who have that specific skill set. Again, niche down so that in the search process, the people that fill the pipeline are people that the company can genuinely be excited about.
What should a founder look for in a recruiter partner for AI roles?
Time is the factor that most hiring teams treasure the most. So a recruiter that sends 20, 30 resumes, that's not helpful, right? The most helpful thing is to receive 5 really high quality resumes of candidates that have already been vetted. And of those 5, you're excited about 4. You're excited about 3. Those 3 move on to interview phase. A recruiter that can do that for you means they have the subject matter expertise in the space to be able to identify high quality resumes, right? And not just identify the high quality resumes, but have had conversations with the individuals to ensure that the person that they're sending over and the qualities that they represent are actually what the AI team need to fill the talent gap. The other critical thing for people who are hiring for nearshore talent, and I'd even say offshore talent here, is did the recruiter test for communication skill? There are people who are very talented and technical, but how well do they communicate? And it's not just about whether you are fluent in, let's call it English in this case. It's how well do you explain your ideas, right? The ability to both communicate what you've built and why you've built it separates the good talent from the great talent, right? To use a cliche. But it's not just the ability to verbalize that, it's also the ability to understand and internalize direction that is coming from the team. So those things are more intangible skills that you won't see on paper, but they're critical in order to determine job success. And so the important thing to test there is not just the ability to verbalize or the ability to listen, but it's to catch the nuance in conversation that allows somebody to really understand the task at hand, what the actual build is, and also be able to communicate back exactly what they've done, the work they've accomplished, and why it's important. If you're planning an AI hire in the next 90 days and want to understand whether Tesoro AI is the right partner for your stage and your role, the best starting point is a talent strategy call. 30 minutes, no pressure. We'll tell you exactly what we can and can't do for you and help you think through the approach either way.